Your teen is not behind. You're looking at the wrong scoreboard. Here's how to reset the panic and build real academic momentum. Number one, if you've ever thought my teen is behind, you're not alone. A lot of parents are asking this, are thinking it. Sometimes they're not asking it because they feel like it's so real. They would look like fools if they asked the question. Your teen is not behind. And here's why. When you look at the grades that your teen brings home, or that you give your teen if you homeschool, you're looking at a snapshot. And then you compare your child with another teen, maybe a sibling, maybe one of their friends, maybe the top students in that school, and the comparison game starts. And then you're looking at timelines. Okay, it's April and he's still working on assignments from February. What's wrong? So this is like a spiral that goes up or goes down. It's a panic spiral. Your teen is not behind, but you're not alone in thinking that. Your fear is, are we running out of time? Because let's face it, high school is 4 years and it's a very fixed timeline. And if you miss it, you miss it. There's a graduation looming, there's a date, there are deadlines to order cap and gown and other regalia and to submit your photos to the coordinator of the ceremony. It's just this pressure that you feel because are we behind? Are we running out of time? That was number one. So there is an emotional reality that I want to acknowledge, and I want you to understand that it's perfectly normal to feel that way. Now, let's go to number two. The problem with the word behind is that we don't know if you mean behind what, behind whom, behind compared to whom. There are grade level standards, right? We all look at those grade level standards and we think if my child is below that, then they're behind. But you have to remember those standards are averages. It's like the babies born in different hospitals. It's all just based on white babies in Ohio. Or every country has their own measurement when it comes to baby. That's not destiny. It's just a number. And then babies grow at different speeds, at different stages. They change and depends on so many factors. And so just because you're born at a certain weight, that doesn't mean you're going to stay petite or big bone for the rest of your life, right? The same goes for academics. We have the kids who excel in K through third grade, and they are just so far ahead of everybody else that the teachers in a classroom sometimes think, oh, the teacher has told this parent that I know, I'm going to make sure that I hold your daughter behind. She's a little ahead of everybody else. We're going to make sure that we hold her back. And the parent was horrified, like, why would you hold her back? There are the kids that accelerate. Okay, so that's a whole different ball game. What? Even in a Montessori school, this was a Montessori school, right? Where supposedly they don't care about grades and they don't care about levels, and they knew she was ahead and they were going to pull her back. There is something called an average, and then there's something called the bell curve, and the kids will always align themselves higher, lower than the average. That's not destiny. It's just a snapshot of where everybody is in that time frame. If we're going to talk about the different grades, middle school is the grade leveler. That's where everybody gets equalized. The kids that got really ahead in middle school, they slow down. The kids that were slightly behind, the slow readers at 7 and 8 and 9, now they're 10 and all of a sudden they take off. Now they discover the pleasure of reading. Middle school is the great equalizer. So really, let's not go by the grade levels because those are not destiny. There is a distortion also that happens in today's society thanks to social media and thanks to competitive schools, right? You hear about these schools that are super expensive, or they're magnet schools, they're charter schools, they don't cost anything, but you gotta somehow play the lottery and win the lottery to get in. And those will distort reality as well because you see these kids excelling so much and you don't know that they do math 8 hours a day, for instance. Then another point is development is not linear, right? I've got this pen here and it's a line, right? But that's not the development of a child. The development of a child, the child goes up, they go down. That happens to us adults as well. So let's not forget that behind is a relative term, and we have to really define the parameters. Let's go to number 3. There's delay and there's dysfunction. So if somebody is delayed, that just means the skill has not been built yet, right? So there's a slight delay because the kid has not spent 4 hours in the swimming pool, right? And so they've only spent 1 hour. And so they're a little bit delayed in learning a particular way of swimming or ice skating. And I'm just talking about sports, but let's talk about math, right? If you don't drill multiplication tables for so many minutes a day, by the time you're in 4th grade, you're going to have to sit there and spend extra seconds to produce 4 times 9 versus the kids that spend the time to build the skill of memorization of the multiplication tables. So that's a delay. Now, a dysfunction, that's a true learning disorder. So when you have a learning disorder or a dysfunction, that's where you get a diagnosis, that's where you get tested, that's where you get paired up with a specialist, and some kind of progress can be made through very well put together protocols. Most teens are in the delay category. They're not in the dysfunction category. Most teens are delayed, and if they're not right there at the average or above, they're just slightly delayed. And so what they need to do is spend more time building skills instead of playing video games. Because that's one thing about screens. And here I am on a screen telling you about screens. If your child is watching screens, even if it's something educational, you have to ask yourself the question, what are they not doing? What are they not doing because they're watching the screen? If you label them too early, that will create a distorted image. And I've had many friends who were afraid to call their child dyslexic because the child was 6, 7, 8. This particular one was a girl. She couldn't read very well. And the mom was afraid to even test the girl because she was afraid the specialist would tell her, you're dyslexic. And then the child would hear that word and they would just have this identity for the rest of their life. And there's damage with identity. The problem with identity is that a lot of self-development gurus will tell you, and this is based on research, the gurus only talk about research, most of the time, I should say. Identity is what helps you change. If you think you are something, you will not be able to change your habits no matter how much and how hard you try. So delay versus dysfunction is number 3. We're moving on to number 4. I'm sure you've heard of Eugene Schwartz and his levels of awareness. When it comes to any kind of problem, we sometimes are not even aware of the problem before we can even become solution aware. We need to become problem aware. So when it comes to a child being behind, obviously, the parents are aware. They are problem aware. And they think that the solution is more pressure. Work harder, put more pressure on the child. The real solution for a teen who is behind is skill building and systems. Help the child develop systems, meaning habits. This is what we mean by systems. Um, is it easy for the child to wake up in the morning? Is it easy for the child to go down at night? Sleep is super important when it comes to the brain, really, when it comes to anything. And so you've got this teen that doesn't have the skill of going down at the same time, no later than 10 p.m. at night, or waking up at 6 a.m. or whatever time your family rhythm allows. And the other thing is, so it's a skill, and it's a system. So, is your kid required to perform some chores around the house? Is there a little chore chart? Is there a little area where he knows exactly what he is supposed to do, what is expected of him? Where's the table where we learn? Where is that table? Do we have the instruments of writing nearby? You got to have some habits and some systems in place where your child can develop these skills, and then the problem will be broken down, and it won't be more pressure. It will be just skill building. Number 5, you got to come up with a plan. And usually 3 is a great way to organize anything. The Germans have a saying, alles Gute sind drei, everything that's good comes in 3s. So here we go. Step number 1, you need objective data. Objective data. And what do I mean by that? Do you have test scores you can look at? Do you see patterns in the way your child learns, or do they learn today and forget tomorrow? You have to observe your child a little bit like a scientist. And then, are they missing assignments? What's the reason? Are they procrastinating, or are they discouraged? Are they overwhelmed? Sometimes teens will shut down. Actually, most of the time, teens will shut down because they are overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. They've got too much to do and they just shut down. And so they're missing assignments. Step number 2, you need to identify the actual skill gap. What are they not sure what to do because they just don't know how to do it? Do they know how to plan? Do they have a planner? Do they know how to focus? Are they trying to study with the phone in the room even? There's research which shows if you put the phone out of the room, forget looking at it, forget music in the background. I have had so many conversations with my kids about studying with the music on or with the music off. Personally, I could not focus on reading and listening to music at the same time. I couldn't. But some kids need that extra stimulation. I don't know how that works, and this is why you need data, and this is why you need to identify the actual skill gap. Because if music bothers them, they need to understand that needs to be turned off. Okay. And then you've got the emotional regulation part. This is tough for everybody, from toddlers to adults. Emotional regulation. Kids cannot focus intellectually, academically, if the amygdala is running the show, if their emotions are running amok. So they need to learn how to regulate their emotions, and that's a skill. And you, as the parent, will have to identify if that's a skill gap that they need to work on. And number 3 in this plan, the 3-step plan that we're putting together, is install some kind of structure. And when I say structure, it doesn't have to sound, like robotic or industrial era widget making. And we're talking about a calendar. We're talking about some routines. We're talking about study blocks. How about a weekly planning meeting where you sort of give everybody a heads up? Hey, on Wednesday, we're doing this. Hey, on Tuesday, make sure you go back to your room at a certain time and you go down because in the morning on Wednesday, we're doing XYZ. So we're just talking about installing a form of a structure. And last but not least, we all need a reframe, because teens do not need to panic. They don't need to panic. They need calm leadership. They don't need to panic themselves, and they don't need to watch you panicking. That is very disturbing for a child, and teens are children. They really are. They really are. They might be taller than you. Both my children are teenagers, and both of them are taller than I am, but they're still children. And that makes it very difficult because I it's confusing. It's confusing. As soon as my son got taller than I am, it was a little transition that we had to go through. But they don't need to see you panicking, and they don't need to panic themselves. They need calm leadership. They're still children, and they're not late. And you're not late. You're early if you act now, because you're realizing there is something going on that bothers you, and so you're taking action. So stop measuring against other kids and start measuring progress in your own child, from where he was to where you want him to be the next day and the next day and the next day. And subscribe if you want more grounded, practical guidance for raising capable teens.